Alright guys, we're doing a CV axle 94 Chevy GM 1500 four-wheel drive. Let's get started. First thing I'm going to do, well, you got to take the tire off, 7/8 socket on those lug nuts. You got a 3/8 Allen for the brakes. We're going to take the 2 bolts off in the back of the caliper. We need some room to get this caliper out of the way. You're going to need a 36mm for the axle nut there. That one's getting jammed in there. Now we want to make sure that these caliper bolts are out of the way. You don't really want to budge. I'm grabbing some pliers, spinning them, pulling them back, just pulling them straight back. They got to get out of the way. Take that caliper in and out smoothly. There we go, a little flat head in there. Press back enough. We should be able to take our caliper off. There we go. We don't want to let it hang, so try to jam it up in there somehow. All right, axle nut. We'll put this back on. We're gonna want to check our torque specs on the axle nut. This rotor's just falling off, so might as well get it out of the way. Alright, we want to take our upper ball joint off, 7/8 wrench. I already started taking it off. Should have a little cotter key in there, get that out. Take the nut off. We need a hammer. Just give it some taps on the steering knuckle, not the ball joint, and it'll kind of vibrate it loose. Let's straighten the wheel out. We'll take an air chisel. It's a pointy bit. It's the easiest way. Put that point right in the center of this axle, and that will force it backwards. Allow the steering knuckle to come forward a little more. Now, our CV axle is out of its home. We just gotta take these bolts off now. Their 15mm fits on it pretty good. A little washer between the nut here, don't lose that. We're gonna try to zip all these off. We got six bolts here. We can go with the extender. Spin it now so I can get to the other two. Go 6 bolts out. There we go, and it slid out in between the sway bar link there. You don't always have enough room to squeeze them out. Between the sway bar, you might have to take the sway bar off, tie rod it off, strut or shock off. Take your pick, whatever you need to do to get room. This one slid out. That's how you remove a CV axle. Pretty universal stuff. All right, we got our new CV axle in. Was able to slip it in through the lower control arm. Press the upper control arm up. In between the sway bar and the strut, comes through. Bring it down, bring the back side up, bolt it in on these bolts in the back. I got that all tightened up. And you pull down on this a little bit. Move your tie rod if you have to, you know, turn your wheels. And yeah, it slid in there. It's a little tight, but it slid into the hub assembly on the splines. So now we're good to go. We have our new axle in. We got to get that axle to slide into the splines of the hub assembly perfectly. And it's pretty sticky. I like to put a little grease on these, the splines, help them slide into place easier. There it goes. See? Just a little lubrication. We got our new axle nut here. Now I can bring this control arm back down. This control arm moves freely because these bolts are loose. Whoever put this control arm on didn't tighten them all the way. So I can move it up and down real easily. Ball joint seems tight. It's just a little sloppy. We'll line up that ball joint. And it looks like we're gonna have to raise this control arm up or something. I got the gear for that. We use a little floor jack and a board. It's just real stiff. Axle nut. Axle nut needs the washer. Ball joint nuts on. Can't forget my washer. Bada boom. This isn't really part of the job, but I'll tighten up the control arm bolts here. And we need to tighten up our ball joint, put the cotter key through, back through. And we need to torque this axle to spec here. So I'm gonna go to my chart and tell you the torque specs on that axle nut. Torque specifications, loading, Chevy Blazer, on a GMC 1500 K series 4-wheel drive pickup, 1991 to 2000, 165 foot-pounds. 165 foot-pounds. That's what we're dealing with. I just worked on a Blazer. I had Blazer on my mind. All right, 165 foot-pounds on the axle nut. Tighten the ball joint down. Put the cotter key in, put the brakes back on, clean them up if they're real rusty. I'm gonna re-grease these slides. This caliper's been replaced recently, so we're good to go on that. And yeah, prime your brake pedal. You know, we took the brakes off, make sure the pads are primed. Hit the brake pedal a couple times, get them touching the rotor again. Get the rotor back on, of course. Put the tire back on, of course. And there we go. Half shaft, CV axle installed.